Welcome back to Garden Talk, brought to you by the Penn State Erie County Extension Master Gardeners. I'm your co-host for today, Mike Bailey, along with Ellen DePlacido. Good morning, Ellen.
Good morning, Mike.
Hey, what are we going to talk about today?
Uh, Cucumber beetles?
Oh, cucumber beetles.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, you're right. I hear, I pick up the tone of your voice. You know,
yeah, yeah.
cucumber beetles are kind of a tough issue as far as I'm
Yes, they
concerned.
are. Hmm.
And in fact, it's probably one of the most challenging insects, okay, to contain that I struggle with in the garden, anyways. But first of
Hmm.
all, what do these beetles look like, Ellen? What are they like?
Well, the cucumber beetles in our area are particularly the yellow beetle, but they have black lines or dots on their body part, and they're only about 3/8 of an inch long. And these beetles like to overwinter in the soil and weed debris. And there we go with these weeds again that you leave in your garden. And then they come out in about mid to late June, and they will eat on all parts of a cucumber plant, in particular their leaves and fruit. Now, the life cycle of the cucumber beetle is kind of interesting. After these beetles mate, they lay eggs right at the base of these plants. And when these eggs hatch, the larvae burrow into the ground, into the soil, right around the plant, and they feed on the roots of that plant during that larva stage. And they remain larvae for about 3 weeks. And during that 3 weeks, then they'll pupate. And after about 10 days, they come out as adults. And in our area, there's about 2 generations every year. So they can become quite evident in your garden. So it's not unusual sometimes to see 6 or 10 beetles around a single plant, and they can do a lot of damage. So you want to look at the blossoms, and these cucumber beetles are active both at dawn and at dusk. So look at the blossoms in the morning and in the evening and see if you have any of those beetles around. But Mike, there's another serious problem about cucumber beetles, isn't there?
Yes, there is, and
Hmm.
that is probably the biggest problem associated with these cucumber beetles, and that's the fact that they carry a disease called bacterial wilt. It's a bacterial disease that is very deadly to the cucumbers, and the, it it's carried in the intestinal tract of the beetles, and it's transferred to the plants when the beetles feed on those plants. And it seems as if the overwintering beetles seem to carry a higher load, if you will, of this infectious disease, infectious bacteria.
Okay.
And this bacteria can be transferred to other beetles when the non infected beetles feed on the plants that have been infected by the beetles that were actually carrying the infection itself. Not
Mm.
all of the beetles initially carry it. So they're not all, in danger of transferring that type of a disease to your plants, but a good portion of them, especially those beetles that emerge. So the beetles
Mm.
that appear after that first wave of overwintered beetles don't seem to be as infectious. Uh, when the plants are infected, what happens is that that bacteria grows within the vascular system of the plant, and it actually plugs up the vascular system. So that the plants cannot absorb water and nutrients, and thus the plants then wilt, turn yellow, and die. And really, there's no cure for this. There's nothing you can do to those plants once they're infected with this particular disease. It's inside the plant. You can't get at it with any kind of sprays, and you can't put them on any kind of IV antibiotics or anything like that. It doesn't work that way with plants, okay? So unfortunately, you have to pull those plants
Just
and
pull
really
them
kind of
out.
dispose of them.
Hmm.
And like I said, you got to pay particular attention to that first wave, uh, and sometimes I just do a lot of hand picking, and we talked about the blossoms in particular because the beetles are easy to spot in the blossoms, and
Okay.
sometimes you can it's easy to trap them there too because sometimes I'll just close up the blossom real quick and break it off and squish it in my hands, okay, and kill the beetles. Uh, but the treatments that we talk about for this particular problem, are certainly the neem and the spinosa and the pyrethrin. But when things get really bad, you can use that carbaryl or that 7. And
Mhm.
I as I was going through all this preparation for this particular topic, I was thinking to myself, well, if the first wave of beetles is the worst, why wouldn't I use my best tool, okay, to control them? Because
Mhm.
if I allow this first wave to infect my plants, my plants are done and I've lost my crop. So,
Well,
so maybe I'm going to suggest maybe that, as you start to see those beetles come out, maybe
mhm.
you start to use that carbaryl,
Right away.
right away, as opposed to, trying to use one of the other substances, because the
Okay.
neem, okay, is in the pyrethrin. They're somewhat contact, um,
Mhm.
you know, controls, and you need to get them onto the bug itself. But in the interim, okay, that bug's going to continue to eat. Same with the spinosad. Okay, it'll get into their digestive tract and kill them. But they're going to feed for a day or two before it happens. And how much disease are they going to spread? So don't
Right.
be afraid to use that carbaryl. I'm going to try that myself. Okay,
Mhm.
start to use the carbaryl, and you can get a liquid spray, and that might be the best. And you really kind of need to focus in on the base of the plant and some of the leaves. Don't spray it into the flowers because you don't want the bees to come in contact with that carbaryl. But
Well,
go ahead, Ellen. Go ahead.
well, if the cucumber beetle is getting into the small plants and all that, is there any advantage to maybe waiting a while before you even plant your cucumbers in your vegetable garden?
Well, that is a recommended approach. Okay, you can avoid this first wave of terribly infectious beetles by not planting your cucumbers maybe until the first part of July. And there's certainly
Okay.
plenty of time after the first part of July to
Yeah,
grow
yeah.
a good crop of cucumbers.
Mhm.
So maybe plan on staggering your planting of cucumbers. Plant some right up front, knowing that you're going to have to take care of them, and then save
Okay.
some room to plant some, a little bit later, so that you don't have
If
to
the
pay it.
first
Yeah,
wave,
yeah,
yeah, if you lose your first planting, then maybe you have room, you could plant them again if
yeah.
need be.
Well,
Yeah.
that, and you won't have to pay such close attention to that second
Yeah.
planting. Be a little
Yeah.
bit more comfortable. So,
Yeah.
Ellen, I think we've used our time for today. So, thank you for listening, and hope you're with us next time. Thank you now.
Okay.